What's going on, guys? Today we're going deep on what actually happens when you buy a stock. Not the price. Not the ticker. The hidden machine behind every trade. What's going on, guys? Today we're pulling back the curtain on something every trader uses but almost nobody understands. Every time you tap buy on a stock, you set off a chain reaction that happens behind the scenes. The price, the ticker, the green confirmation, that's just the headline. The real work is moving ownership, cash, and risk through brokers, clearinghouses, depositories, and banks. And that machine wasn't built overnight. It was built because Wall Street once nearly choked to death on its own paperwork. We're going to follow the money and the shares from the moment you hit buy, all the way to where they finally land, and then we're going to talk about how that whole system is being rebuilt right now. Before 1973, buying a stock meant moving a physical certificate. If you bought 100 shares of IBM, somebody had to physically send you a piece of paper proving it. Brokers shipped certificates by truck, plane, and messenger. When trading volume exploded in the 1960s, the back offices couldn't keep up. The market was drowning in what became known as the paperwork crisis. The fix was the Depository Trust Company, DTC, created in 1973. Instead of moving paper, DTC held securities electronically and changed ownership by book entry. Today, most U.S. stock is held in what's called street name. The legal owner on the issuer's books is Seed & Company, DTC's nominee. You are the beneficial owner, recorded on your broker's books. The physical certificate itself is basically gone, and that one change became the foundation of modern markets. Holding securities electronically solved one problem. Guaranteeing that trades actually complete was another. That's where the National Securities Clearing Corporation, NSCC, comes in. When your trade prints, NSCC steps between buyer and seller through a legal substitution called novation. NSCC becomes the buyer to every seller and the seller to every buyer. That means brokers no longer have to check each other's credit every time they trade. If one side fails, NSCC's guarantee framework absorbs the risk. Then NSCC applies multilateral netting. Instead of settling thousands of trades one by one, it collapses offsetting obligations into one net movement per firm. DTCC says this cuts the value that actually has to move by roughly 98% on a typical day. It's the reason a market with trillions in daily trades doesn't need trillions in daily cash movement. So where do your money and shares actually go? Once NSCC clears and nets the trade, DTC transfers the securities on its books. Your broker is a DTC participant, and you are the beneficial owner on your broker's books. The cash moves separately through the banking system, from your broker's bank to the seller's broker's bank. Since May 28, 2024, the standard U.S. equity settlement cycle has been T+1. That means trade date plus 1 business day. Before that it was T+2. The whole structure sits under DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Corporation. Through its subsidiaries, DTCC owns DTC, NSCC, and FICC for treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. These names never make headlines, but they are the rails that carry nearly every U.S. securities trade. Now the plumbing is being rebuilt. DTCC is not just moving existing securities faster, it is creating a parallel system where traditional assets become blockchain-based tokens. In July 2026, DTCC ran a live tokenization pilot with roughly 40 major financial institutions, including JP Morgan Chase, BlackRock, Goldman Sachs, and Vanguard. They tokenized Russell 1000 equities, major ETFs like SPY and QQQ, and U.S. Treasuries, settling them on a distributed ledger. DTCC's tokenization service issues digital twins of assets held at DTC and delivers them to participant wallets. Project Ion, a separate DLT-based settlement platform, is already running in parallel production. The pitch is faster settlement, better collateral use, and 24/7 liquidity. Right now the focus is securities, but the framework is designed to expand into real-world assets like commodities and real estate. The question is who controls the ledger. Tokenized securities need tokenized cash to settle. That's where the banks come in. The USDF Consortium, launched by FDIC-insured banks in 2022, mints dollar-pegged tokens redeemable one-for-one for cash. Each token is issued by a bank, not a crypto startup, and stays on a bank balance sheet. The bigger idea is the Regulated Liability Network, or RLN, a shared ledger for central bank reserves, commercial bank deposits, and tokenized assets. The New York Fed Innovation Center already tested it with major banks and SWIFT. The Bank for International Settlements has published a unified ledger blueprint for the same future. Put it together and the picture is clear. The institutions that already sit in the middle of every trade and every dollar are building the tokenized layer of the economy. The pitch is efficiency. The risk is concentration. Clicking buy is easy. Making sure ownership, money, and risk land in the right places is the hard part, and the next version of that machine is already under construction. One last thing before we wrap. We talked about DTCC, DTC, NSCC, and the banks building tokenized money. But there's one more layer nobody ever explains. The Federal Reserve System is set up like a hybrid. The Board of Governors in Washington is a federal agency. But the 12 regional Federal Reserve banks, the ones that actually operate the system, are technically owned by their member banks. If you're a commercial bank in the Federal Reserve System, you're required by law to buy stock in your regional Fed bank. That stock pays a fixed 6% dividend, but it does not give the banks control over interest rates or monetary policy. The Board of Governors does that. But here's what matters. Look at the names that keep showing up. JP Morgan Chase, BlackRock, Citadel, Jane Street, Bank of America. These are the same firms clearing your trades, running market-making operations, sitting on DTCC's tokenization pilot, and building tokenized money systems. The New York Fed is the most powerful regional bank. It runs the open market operations that affect interest rates and liquidity. And its member list reads like a Wall Street who's who. The same institutions that sit in the middle of every trade, every dollar, and every Fed operation are building the tokenized layer of the economy. This isn't a conspiracy theory. This is the public structure of the system. The pitch is always efficiency. The reality is concentration. Clicking buy is easy. Understanding who actually owns and controls the rails underneath it is the hard part. Stay sharp, guys. Boondocks Trader out.